Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Revive's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome futurist, marketing guru, and best-selling author Sergio Zyman. He was appointed the first chief marketing officer at Coca-Cola, and he completely rebooted Coke's marketing strategy and boosted worldwide annual sales from 9 to 15 billion cases. That is a lot of Coke. Probably the most explosive growth in the company's history. He also went on to launch Diet Coke and Cherry Coke and the disastrous New Coke, which we'll talk about. The Time magazine named him one of the top 3 pitchmen of the 20th century, after which he then pronounced that marketing is dead. Not sure about that, but we'll find out. Sergio, you were involved in what some consider to be one of the biggest epic marketing failures, I think, on the planet, maybe in the universe, but the introduction of New Coke, which flopped, kind of like the Ford Edsel. So I'd love to start on that because it's kind of a badge of honor for you in one way. I personally always thought that maybe you guys just should have made that another flavor because it was just altering the original taste of Coke. Now companies are going out of their way to create all different types of flavors and brands and new blends and just flavoring water or just water. I mean, paying billions of dollars to acquire water companies. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts, but maybe you guys wanted that controversy. Maybe it was part of your marketing strategy to get people to kind of pledge their allegiance to Coke, and probably an expensive loyalty program, I guess. But so we'd love to start with that. Maybe just tell us kind of what happened. What's the story there?
Well, you made the decision that it was an incredible failure.
Yeah, I did.
And then I guess that the press and the pundits all made the decision it was an incredible failure.
Right.
By the way, the stock doubled in the 77 days that New Coke was in the market.
I remember that.
And by the way, when we launched New Coke, 3 days later, 81% of the people said they had tried it and hated it. We only had 5% distribution. When we brought back Classic 77 days later, we didn't have any distribution. And 80% of people said, "Oh my God, it's back." Okay.
Right.
The real strategy or the real issue behind New Coke, which continues to be kind of thrown around as the biggest failure in the history of mankind, is that the company was not a marketing company, and I guess in many ways the company stopped being a marketing company even today. And the company was pretty much a company, a belonging company. It was kind of, you had to belong and kind of not make too many waves. And it kept on growing.
Definitely a club. I remember that. It was a very different culture.
And it kept on growing through distribution. So it was blinded really by visible demand, okay, in the sense that you kept on growing and everybody believed that it was all the same thing. When Pepsi, who became the marketing director for Coke, launched the Pepsi Generation, saying that Pepsi was for younger people and Coke was for older people, what it did is it created awareness and it created noise around Coke, and the volume went up, and the company still didn't want it to change. The reality, and to cut to the chase, is that the positioning of the brand was wrong. Everybody wanted to just kind of say that Coke was the original and everything was fine and all that, but there were some underlying positioning issues, and a lot of people were coming in and challenging Coke, and we tried to change a lot of things, but the advertising agency, who was incredibly powerful inside the company, lobbied constantly about changing the position. They wanted to continue to promote the brand versus promoting people buying the stuff.
Exactly.
And eventually we ended up in the thing that said the only thing that we can do is, if indeed people are choosing Coke over Pepsi, the formula guy said, "Oh, we can make a better product." Then we launched the product, and then what happened. There was one reporter that will never disclose who he was, who asked Goizueta at the press conference, what if it doesn't work? And Goizueta said, oh, you don't understand, it will. And that guy is the guy that started the tidal wave. So at the end of the day, the brand was retooled. Everything came back to the company having a real good positioning on the brand. And it gave a lot of fodder to the press and a lot of people to say that this was the greatest failure ever happened. And it was.
Yeah, and they even like gave it an action word. You knew coked it. You coked it. You blew it. And there's been plenty of, I teach entrepreneurship and innovation at Kellogg School, and I give out tons of examples of epic failures, or epic tries is what I try to call them, including United Airlines, which branched out into something called Allegis, and just massive epic failure. And the CEO is probably way too gung-ho about it. Back then, if I walked down the grocery aisle when you were CMO, we'll get into CMO roles here in a minute, there was like a little section of soda pop, as they used to call it, in the aisle. Now I walk down the aisle at any major supermarket, from Walmart down to the local guys, but mostly the big retailers. It's not just one entire aisle, it's both sides of the aisle. There's so many brands and so many different things that, back then there was like a couple. So you guys started with Diet Coke. I remember the big Pepsi wars and the Coke Pepsi wars, billions of dollars of advertising spent. We'll get to that in a second, but it's just overwhelming now when you try to go to a store and select something to drink.
Well, it's an interesting thing, because there is science behind a lot of this stuff, right? And if you I believe that marketing is scientific. I don't think that it's artistic. And what we discovered when I went back to Coke after, New Coke was 85. I left the company in 88 because I just got tired of pushing water uphill. And then the company called me back in 93 to come back, and I became the first ever chief marketing officer of any company. And at the time, my point of view was that brands deal with acceptability, availability, and affordability, 3 A's. And if you look at Starbucks in New York City, the more stores that they open, nothing, they didn't cannibalize anything. And the reason for that is because they had tremendous acceptability. The reason you see more and more product in the stores is you're trying to create points of interruption. You're trying to actually put the brand in front of the consumer and trigger this impulse buy. Walmart is the king of it, right? They have all this impulse buying. I don't know what the numbers are today, but in my days, I think over 60% of all purchases at Walmart were impulse.
Yeah, I'm a victim of that too.
Yeah, so basically in the stores, the reason why, now you can go to Buffalo, New York, and you're not going to see a lot of distribution on Coke because the product is not acceptable. Or you can go to Houston and you can put all the Pepsi in the world that you want, and consumers are not interested. So in Houston, where Coke has dominance, availability doesn't work. In Buffalo, where Coke is very weak, availability doesn't work. So it's all part of a strategy, that basically tries to get consumers to buy more stuff. Yeah. Remember, for me, marketing is about selling more stuff to more people more often for more money, more efficient. That's what marketing is.
Right. Some people have lost track of that, but we have moved from the age of what you said when the chairman said, "Hey, please come back to Coke. I'll make you chief marketing officer, the first one in the world." Not just for the company, but for it was like, hey, that position, the marketing guy, as I used to call it, needs to be elevated. But before that, it was like there was the head of advertising and the head of R&D, and they tended to run a lot of these company cultures. That was just like, we got to make a product and we're going to just sell the heck out of it online. Excuse me. And in store. And now I see a lot of that same behavior, even though it's scientific and we have a lot of data. I still see a lot of companies doing that. It's like, let's come up with something, and it's getting so easy to market and try and fail things online. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, when I went to interview with the chairman, he said to me, "I want you to come back to the company." And I said, "To do what, sir?" He said, "Be the marketing guy." I said, "I don't understand what you mean." And he got a little upset at me. And he said, "What do you mean? The marketing thing." I said, "What is the marketing thing, Roberto?" And I said, you know what? Let me tell you what I like to do. I like to go away and write a document that I will give to you that basically says, I want to be in charge of growth. And he said, oh my God, you want to have everybody report to you? I said, I don't want anybody to report to you. I just want to make sure that my charter is how do we generate growth? And then I said, and by the way, in order to be able to do that, I need to be on the C-suite. And he gave me the title of Chief Marketing Officer, which allowed me to then start driving a lot more. If we're going to spend money, we're going to have to make money. You said before that half of the advertising doesn't work. I think 90% of the advertising doesn't work. Why do people advertise on Super Bowl or some of the other times? I did a lot of analysis when I had my consulting firm, and many times that advertising just doesn't work. It makes people feel good, but I think that advertising needs to convince people about why they should buy more or use more of the stuff that either they're using or buying, or that they're not using or buying. I remember it's always more efficient to get somebody who's already consuming your brand, I don't care what brand it is, to consume more of it than try to convince somebody who doesn't consume your brand to switch.
Yeah, that's kind of getting into the weeds. Acquisition versus retention, loyalty marketing, which is huge. We kind of touched on the roles. Let's just go back to that for a second. Right now, at least in the States, I don't know what the global stats are right now, but the tenure of a chief marketing officer and the tenure of a chief innovation officer are pretty much at an all-time low, under 2 years, if that. A lot of pressure on those jobs, a lot of pressure for growth. There's often a chief growth officer, but they're really more on the sales kind of side of things. So what's some of your advice for these folks that are taking on these pretty heavy roles that have a high growth expectation to it? They can't keep doing what they used to do that got them to that job, can they?
Well, I just don't think that the definition of the job is clear. So people get all excited about the title. When I went back to Coke, I kept on saying to people, so what do you do? And they'll say, I'm director of the blah, 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 blah. I said, no. I'm saying, what do you do every day? Okay. So I think that when somebody calls me up, when I was consulting, I would always turn around to the marketing person and I would say, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm the senior vice president or the chief marketer. What do you do? And people cannot articulate what it is that they do. If somebody called you up and said, I want you to be chief marketing officer, chief strategy officer, chief whatever it is, figure out what it is that you're trying to do. Where are you trying to get to? Look, let's take it into the dumb side, okay? You go to the airport, you go to the counter and say, I'd like to have a ticket. That very uncooperative person is going to say to you, where do you want to go? And if you don't tell her or him where you want to go, they cannot sell you a ticket. I think in business it's the same kind of thing. Tell me what you want me to get done. What is the task at hand? And I think that if they did that, then the tenure will be a lot longer. But unfortunately, two things. They're not well prepared because many of them come from the ad business, and they're basically they're judged on how pretty the commercial is or which director you use. And the other stuff is a grind. When you look, I've been to 123 countries around the world. When I was chief marketing officer at Coke, I was on the road 200 days a year because I would go to the market and I would sit with the guys. We hired 2,000 marketing people around the world to replace the people that had an avocation for marketing, and then things changed. That's where we went from $9 billion case a year to 15 billion case a year. And by the way, the stock quadrupled in those 4 years. So my advice is define whether you're giving the charter or if you're actually giving the task and people are going to support you to actually be the person that is actually driving growth, and that, advertising and all that is fine. Those are the tools. But if you don't have a clear view of where you're going, you can't get there.
Right. In your books, you talk about how marketing and advertising are dead, and it's more about science than art, though it's probably both. I was CEO of TNS Media, which sold to WPP, and the reason they wanted that is all the old advertising platforms were not very well measured. And this was all about digital measurement of advertising, know exactly where to spend your money. And there has never been an easier time with the exceptions of, the overwhelming amount of data. But if you can figure it out, there's never been an easier time to, as we say, target audiences, not a very affectionate term, but it's really what you're doing. But I still see companies blasting stuff out that's not that scientific. But let's just stick with the digital marketing thread. Things like personalization, what Revive does, things like actually engaging and developing more loyal customers, is your point, like getting more business out of them. Seems like it's easier and easier. What kind of advice do you give to CMOs for really enhancing their digital, not just their digital reach, but their platforms and how they actually communicate with target audiences and get more people to engage with them, first of all, and then hopefully buy as well?
Well, I mean, let's talk about who is, in my opinion, the best marketing company in the world today, which is Amazon.
Yep.
Amazon basically tells me what to do because they keep on giving me avenues for me to consume more products. And then they study what it is that I did. And then they come back and they sell me more of the stuff that I want to buy. And, eventually they're getting now more and more quietly into private label, because they're coming to me and they're saying, by the way, you bought, Ever Ready batteries the other day. I can sell you Amazon batteries 30% cheaper, and I'll put you on a subscription and I'll give you this stuff. I think that you got to look all of these things. I mean, I love how people, this is what I call the Willie Nelson strategy, looking for love in all the wrong places, right? I think that digital is great. Okay.
I thought that was Wailing Jennings, but okay.
Well, fine, but he sang the song. The reality of the thing is all of these are tools to actually enhance your ability to convince people to buy more of your stuff.
Right.
But you got to look at it holistically that way, versus thinking that, oh my God, we got to be on Facebook, or we got to be on this, or we got to be on that. Because many times you're on that, but you don't have a strategy behind it. So I think that now we're giving more and more tools to connect with consumers. And if you actually look at it and you say, look, here's how we have to connect with consumers, I think that you have the ability to do better. I give you one example of something that I kind of remember. We're sitting around one day going through these horrific annual reviews that we used to do with everybody from around the world. Mm-hmm. And the guys from Indonesia walk in and say, we're going to be down next year. And I went, no, we're not going to be down. That down is not in the cards. They said, well, what we have is we have the lunar year, we have 2 Ramadans. Mm-hmm. And, and during Ramadan, people don't eat at all, for, I guess, 40 days or 40 some days. And now we have 2 of them. I said, but wait a minute. I understand that people actually eat once they break the fast. He said, yeah, but that's at night. I said, well, change your strategy. Why don't you go try to figure out how you can market during the night? Why don't you change how you can deliver product during the night, deliver strategies? We did. We flattened the curve. And then we went to all the Muslim countries around the world that actually were doing that. And that created a lot of growth. But you got to challenge those things. You got to look at those by looking at the facts and looking at the reasons why people do what they do and try to figure out whether they actually change that.
Right. So let's go back to your example, Amazon. I talk about Amazon a lot, specifically how they use different technologies to target people, but it's an algorithmic approach, not very personalized, not very genuine, but very good. And they make it very easy for people to buy stuff. That's one of the issues small retailers have, and even some of the big ones that are still trying to catch up, even like Walmart. It's like Amazon just makes it too easy. You can trip over yourself and order something at the same time.
Correct.
So, but let's flip that and look at someone like an Ulta Beauty, where it's like, no, we're doing just the opposite. It is a personalized experience, whether it's online or whether it's in store. We're going to talk to you. We're going to get to know you. Of course, they have a more focused product line, but they actually are, getting broader and broader. So, talk to me about kind of like the different side to that. How can retail? I guess the question is, how can retailers fight back to Amazon? That's number one. And number two, personalization, both online and in store. How do you win that battle?
By the way, I think that's a fabulous example of what you just said. You described, the Ulta thing like an Amazon thing, because you're saying that they're actually connecting the consumers and they're saying to consumers, we know what your pain is and we're going to fix your pain. But we're going to basically tell you that this is something that will make your life better. right?
And it's a fabulous experience at an Ulta, Beauty, or a Sephora.
Sure,
Yeah,
but I mean,
exactly.
but look, how you define that, right? You go to Amazon. At the time, that one of the pain points in order in line was, the how much it will cost you to actually get your stuff, and they created the largest frequent flyer program in the history of mankind with Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep on tweaking it and keep on doing a bunch of stuff with Amazon Prime. Now they have the son of Amazon Prime and the daughter of Amazon Prime and Amazon Fresh and all that stuff. But they continue to tell people this is better for you. Your example of it, we're going to personalize it and all that stuff is exactly the same thing. Now, one you have mega mass, and then the other one you have kind of less consumption, less frequency. You also have to look at your frequencies, right? I mean, Amazon, when you look at the Amazon experience, the frequency of consumption, once you agglomerate all of the consumption occasions, makes it probably every hour. In Ulta Beauty, I mean, you probably cannot sell somebody a new product, every day. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the consumption cycles are different, but I think that you can actually personalize the thing by telling people, by the way, this is good for you. Look, I'm a fan of Hertz Number One Club. When Hertz Number One Club came about, I don't know how many years ago, 100 years ago,
or Hertz
they
Gold or
said,
whatever.
well, no, but
By the way,
Hertz
just to prove your point, I'm actually purchasing a present for my fiance for Christmas on Amazon while you're talking. Those of you that are on YouTube can see
there you
that, so I'm
go.
not lying. They make it too easy. So
Well,
Hertz Gold, love it.
Hertz Number One Club, they had a problem. Remember in the old days,
Yeah.
when we used to go to the airport and there was a clerk that had
Yeah.
a box of keys,
In a
and
line.
then you actually had to go do a thing and you had to wait a minute, your car is not ready. They figured out they had a problem. And the
Mhm.
problem was that they had a logistics problem. So they figured out that, they needed to allow, and when you deliver your car back, they were going to clean it up, put it in the lot, and assign it to the next person that was going to rent it, me. Okay. So then they created Hertz Number One Club. And the premise of Hertz Number One Club was, we're going to have the car ready when you get there. As opposed to what? I mean, who said that we needed to wait, for 2.5 hours and be schlepping around? Right?
Low standards. Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, they came out with Hertz Number One Club. They charged $19.95 at the time and waived it. Okay. So they created a need and they converted it. And, they got copied. Emerald Isle is another one that actually has done in the
They've all copied them. And quite frankly, people have copied Amazon. So rather than the Ulta Amazon comparison, how does Walmart really win against Amazon? They're trying, but they're nowhere close to closing that gap, because it fixes your volume problem. I can order from them constantly if I wanted to.
Well, go to the core essence of the brand. Okay.
Yeah.
Walmart, as we said before, I used to say that a number one competitor to Walmart was the price of gas, because if people didn't go to the store, they didn't walk around the store and they didn't do the impulse shopping, then they had trouble. So Amazon, when I was on the board of the Gap, Amazon hired the head of Banana Republic to go deliver. I mean, that's a long time ago. That's probably 2000. To go deliver a online system. It never worked. Even today, when you try to buy Amazon online, they don't believe in it. And when you go to the store, you actually, if you order online and you want to go pick it up at the store, they can give it to you outside, but you got to wait for 40 minutes. Or if you go inside, the will call thing is all the way in the back of the store. So you got to walk.
You're talking about Walmart.
Yeah, they still don't believe.
So they have accelerated that. During COVID, they had a trial program going on and they've accelerated. So actually Walmart pickup, they've got that down now. That's been fixed, but the ease of use compared to online, just getting people to buy repetitively, it's still got some ways to go there. And sometimes it's a different target audience, but the comparative shopping you can do to a Walmart, a Best Buy, I just did it this morning, and an Amazon to buy a new piece of equipment for this podcast, which I did this morning. It's just too easy. We've got 3 screens up. It's not about price, it's about who can get it who can get it here quicker and maybe do some install work. How do you win in that digital marketing mess where there's total transparency, price matching. Is it all about loyalty at that point between those three? Let's say Best Buy and Amazon and a Walmart, same
I
product.
think that you got to keep on throwing stuff at the consumer, which is additional to what the product is. I mean, you're a golfer, I'm a golfer. I mean, I subscribe to 10, online golfing companies, and then they give you the, $2 shipping, or, we're going to, I mean, we have the Christmas thing, or we have, I mean, they keep on actually coming up with offers. It's like the old toys in the cereal box. You got to keep on bringing something new in order to differentiate yourself.
You Gen XYZ people don't know what that is, but they used to put toys in the cereal box. I remember those. And The Surprise Inside. Seth Godin made a big book about that as well, about, kind of, that's when surprise and delight became like the buzzwords. And good point.
There is no momentum. Loyalty is perishable, and I think that people, I mean, I think that
it's also tangible though. It's just, you've got to keep it up.
But it's perishable. And if you don't nurture it, if you don't feed it, eventually it goes like, that's like the expiration date on a carton of milk. It goes away,
It does? Oh, kidding. So you think personalization is a hot topic? What about all this buzz about meta worlds? I personally, I've been doing 3D worlds and games for years. I mean, actually run a couple of companies that we sold that did it. And to me, it's been coming for 20 years. So what's your latest thought here in 2022 about what's going on? Just because Facebook changes its name to Meta, does that mean everyone's going to be buying in these 3D worlds?
No, look, I think that we have now a massive production of stuff, that comes on top. It's a lot easier to do things, to come in and challenge it. And it's a lot easier to challenge the status quo when you have something to compare yourself to. And I think we're going to continue to be bombarded with new options and new ways and new and improved everything as we go through. And I think that that's just the nature of the thing. We now have a little supply chain problem, but once that thing is fixed, I think we're going to continue to have product ideas, entertainment, all kinds of stuff that is going to continue to challenge the existing products.
Hey, real quick, I heard you've been, you're obviously a guru consultant on marketing for CEOs and CMOs and strategy and stuff, but I heard you've been doing some of that for politicians. How do you compare the two?
Well, it's interesting, in politics, you have a due date. In business, you don't, right? So in politics, you can always go to the candidate. Remember, the candidate runs, and then after that, they actually develop a hearing problem. They start listening to you. And unless you have the data, you agree in advance that the data is what's going to rule, then eventually they don't pay attention to you. I think that you can always claim that you're close to that Tuesday in November. And if they don't pay attention to what you're doing, they're not going to get elected. Sometimes they don't. Look, Romney, when he was running for president, he had a message that was, he wanted to, and I was on the kind of the side team, or the kind of talking to some of the main consultants, and his message was, this is a referendum on Obama. It wasn't, okay? I mean, people were not interested in having a referendum on Obama, and he said, I have more money. And I think that the more money he spent telling people that he was going to have a referendum on Obama, he was actually going to lose the election. I mean, look at what happened in Virginia, okay?
Focusing on the problem, not the opportunities. There's a lot of parallels there to like Burger King and McDonald's. I mean, a lot of times they're just trashing each other versus selling the future.
Well, but you're trying to actually at that point in time, what you're trying to do is you're trying to position your competition, which is what politicians do, right? Brawling versus frying was a way for Burger King to position McDonald's.
Exactly.
And
that worked. That was a good one. That worked.
Sure. But so they worked for Ronald Reagan, when Ronald Reagan said to Carter, here you go again, Jimmy, right? He positioned with the past.
Yep. So there are some good parallels there. I like that. We've got about 30 seconds left. Appreciate you joining us. Just a couple quick tips for aspiring CMOs out there.
Define the job. Don't go for the title. That is the number one thing. Figure out what it is that you're supposed to deliver, and then have metrics that prove that you're delivering what you were told to deliver. And if anybody tells you that what you got to do is you got to kind of grow the brand, look, grow the business, don't grow the brand.
I love it. Words of wisdom. Thanks, Sergio. You've been listening to Sergio Zyman, and this is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. We want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.